The ring of Anna's phone at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday was a sound that ripped through the quiet fabric of her sleeping mind. She saw her boyfriend's name, Mark, and her heart seized. He wasn't in bed with her. He was at his own apartment across town. A call at this hour was never good. "Mark, what's wrong?" His voice was thick, broken. "She's gone, Anna, my grandma. She passed away about an hour ago." Anna sat bolt upright, the sleep vanishing, replaced by a cold rush of adrenaline and sorrow. "Oh, Mark, oh, my love, I'm so sorry." She listened to him try to form sentences, his words catching on the rocks of his grief. He was the fifth of 13 children, and this was his paternal grandmother, the matriarch who had, in many ways, set the standard for the entire family. "I'm booking a flight," he finally managed. "It's back home, for Thursday. The funeral is Saturday." "Not you," Anna said firmly, already kicking off her blankets and walking to her closet. We are booking a flight. I'm coming with you. Just tell me what airline." 2 days later, they were descending through a thick blanket of gray clouds into the small regional airport of his hometown. For the 2 years they had been together, Anna, 24, and Mark, 25, had built a life that felt perfectly, comfortably modern. They lived in a bustling city, split their rent, and shared a meticulous chore wheel that hung on their, since they'd unofficially moved in together, refrigerator. Anna was a graphic designer at a rising ad agency, a career she adored and had fought hard for. Mark, a software engineer, was supportive, kind, and she'd always believed deeply progressive, but he rarely spoke of his family. She knew the statistics: 13 children, a father who owned a contracting business, a mother who— well, Anna wasn't sure. She assumed, given the number of children, that she was a stay-at-home mom, but Mark always just called her amazing and left it at that. The visit was under the worst possible circumstances. Anna was there to be a pillar of support, to hold his hand and be a quiet presence. But as they drove their rental car from the airport, a nervous energy thrummed beneath her skin. This wasn't just meeting the parents. This was meeting an entire dynasty, steeped in a grief she couldn't begin to understand. "The house is going to be a lot," Mark warned, his voice still rough. "All my siblings are flying in, all 8 of the adult ones. And the 5 at home. It's just brace yourself." "I'm here for you, Mark. Whatever you need," she said, squeezing his hand. He turned off the main road onto a long gravel driveway. The house that emerged from the winterbear trees was enormous. It wasn't a modern McMansion. It was an old, sprawling Victorian farmhouse, added onto over decades until it looked like a charming, rambling village. It was pristine. The lawn was edged, the porches swept, the windows spotless. Before Mark could even put the car in park, the front door burst open. A woman, who Anna assumed was in her early 50s, came bustling out. She looked, Anna thought, remarkably like her own mother in age 53. She was wiping her hands on an apron, her face etched with sorrow but also lit with a powerful, welcoming warmth. This was Helen. "Mark, my boy," she cried, pulling him into an embrace that seemed to envelop him. "Hi, Mom, I'm so sorry," Mark murmured into her shoulder. "She's with your grandfather now, sweetheart. It's all right." "It's all right." Helen held him for a long moment, and Anna felt a profound respect for this woman, holding her own grief at bay to comfort her son. Then, Helen turned to Anna, her eyes, though red-rimmed, full of a bright, clear kindness. "And you must be Anna. Oh, it is so wonderful to finally meet you, dear. I'm just so sorry it's under these circumstances." "It's so nice to meet you, too, Mrs. Peterson. I'm deeply sorry for your family's loss. Please, call me Helen. Come in, you must be freezing." The inside of the house was just as huge and immaculate as the outside. It smelled of lemon polish, baking bread, and something warm and savory. Despite the somber reason for the gathering, the house was alive. Teenagers Anna didn't know were shuttling past, carrying blankets. A toddler, no, even younger, a baby, was asleep in a bassinet by the massive stone fireplace. "This is madness," Mark whispered, a small, sad smile on his face. "Welcome to the circus." Helen was already moving, a whirlwind of hospitality and command. "Mark, take your bags up to your old room. There's stew on the stove, it's fresh. Anna dear, can I get you a cup of tea? Or coffee? I have both." "Tea would be lovely, thank you," Anna said, feeling slightly breathless. The sheer scale of the operation was staggering. The house was spotless, yet it was clear that at least 7 children, plus parents, and now grieving adult siblings were living in it. "I'll get it, Mom," a girl of about 16 said, appearing from a hallway. "Thank you, Sarah, just let it steep." Helen turned back to Anna. "I'm so glad you're here. He talks about you all the time." Anna smiled, her nervousness easing. Helen was sweet, warm, and welcoming, just as advertised. The family seemed great. But as she stood in the foyer, watching Helen direct 3 different streams of traffic, one child heading out for groceries, another being told to check on the baby, a third being asked to set out bowls for the stew, Anna felt the first flicker of a strange, unsettling thought. Helen hadn't stopped moving since they'd arrived. She was a planet, and the entire, massive household was simply held in her orbit. The next day, Anna woke before dawn. It wasn't by choice. The house, which had fallen into a deep silence around midnight, came to life with the precision of a military base. The floorboards in the hallway creaked, and Anna, unused to the sounds, opened her eyes. Mark was fast asleep beside her, exhausted from the travel and the emotional weight. Curious, and needing a glass of water, Anna slipped out of the room. The sky outside was still a deep, inky purple, but the kitchen downstairs was ablaze with light. She patted down the enormous central staircase and paused in the kitchen doorway, unseen. Helen was already there, a pot of coffee brewing. But she wasn't just making coffee. She was standing at the counter, a row of 8 sandwiches laid out assembly line style. Beside them, a massive Tupperware container was being filled with a simple green salad. A man who Anna recognized from photos as Arthur, Mark's father, lumbered into the kitchen, dressed in work boots and a heavy canvas jacket. He owned a large contracting business, and clearly, grief or no grief, the work continued. "Morning, love," he grunted, kissing Helen's temple. "Morning, Arthur, your breakfast is on the table, your lunch is here, coffee's almost ready." Arthur sat at the head of the cavernous dining table. A full plate of scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast was waiting for him. Anna had no idea when Helen could have possibly made it. The woman hadn't even had a sip of her own coffee. Arthur ate quickly, wordlessly. Helen finished packing his lunch bag, adding a thermos of coffee, 2 apples, and the sandwiches. She walked it over to him, placing it by his keys. He finished his plate, stood, and kissed her again. "I'll be back by 6, he said. "Dinner's at 6:30, she replied. "Good, don't let the kids get too wild." "I won't." He grabbed his lunch, his keys, and was out the door. All he did, Anna realized, was maintenance on his own body. He woke up, was fed, and left. Helen, meanwhile, had already done what looked like an hour's worth of work. As the sun began to rise, the house truly woke up. The 5 children still living at home, ranging from the 17-year-old senior to the baby, began to filter down. Helen had transformed the kitchen from a lunch prep station to a breakfast diner. A gargantuan cast-iron skillet was sizzling with bacon. Another held pancakes. A pot of oatmeal bubbled on the back burner. "Holy crap," Mark mumbled, appearing behind Anna and kissing her neck. "I forgot what a full house sounds like." "Your mom," Anna whispered, amazed. "What time did she get up?" "Oh, 4:30, probably," Mark said, as if this were the most normal thing in the world. "Dad likes to be out the door by 5:30. They entered the kitchen, and Helen immediately smiled. "There they are. Anna, sweetheart, how did you sleep? Pancake, oatmeal, I've got eggs too." "Pancakes sound amazing, Helen, thank you." "But please let me help," Anna insisted. "Oh, nonsense, dear, you're a guest." "I'm not a guest, I'm family adjacent," Anna joked weakly. "I want to do something." Helen seemed to size her up, her kind eyes crinkling. "Well, if you insist, could you watch the bacon, just don't let it burn." Anna took the tongs, feeling slightly ridiculous. For the next hour, she helped, but it was like trying to help a thunderstorm. Helen was a force of nature. She fed the baby, signed a permission slip, started a load of laundry, and wiped down every counter, all while maintaining a cheerful, continuous conversation with all 6 people in the kitchen. While they were there, Anna noticed Helen was constantly busy. She wasn't just a stay-at-home mom. She was the CEO, COO, and entire workforce of a major corporation. The adult children, who had arrived late last night, began to filter in, all of them grieving, all of them looking to Helen for comfort and food. And she provided. Anna watched her bustle. She does everything, Anna murmured to Mark as they sat on the porch swing for a moment of quiet. She's incredible, Mark agreed, his voice thick with admiration. She even does his laundry and irons everything. His work shirts, his jeans, everything. Dad doesn't have to do anything at home. What does he do? Anna asked. Well, he does maintenance. Fixes the boiler, patches the roof, the big stuff. Mom does everything else. The yard, the gardens, all of it. She gardens, this place has acres, Mark laughed. I know, she's a machine. Anna looked at the massive, perfectly manacled yard. She thought of the 13 children, the spotless house, the endless, massive meals. She looked back at Mark, who was beaming with pride. And for the first time, the respect Anna felt for Helen was tinged with a cold, deep and profound horror. I do not envy her, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Mark didn't seem to hear, he just sighed. It's good to be home. The day of the funeral was a blur of black cloth, whispered condolences, and the heavy scent of lilies. Anna stood by Mark's side, holding his hand as he and his 12 siblings, a truly staggering line of people, paid tribute to their grandmother. Helen was a portrait of quiet dignity, comforting her children and her husband, who seemed adrift without his mother. Anna's role was simple: be present, be silent, and be supportive. She fulfilled it perfectly. When they returned to the house, the atmosphere was thick with shared sorrow. The adult siblings, their spouses, and their own children, Mark's nieces and nephews, filled the home to bursting. It was an army of mourners. Anna had assumed, logically, that with so many people the post-funeral meal would be catered, or that the adult children, all of whom seemed capable and kind, would have organized a potluck. She was wrong. As the family dispersed through the living rooms and porches, Helen, who had just spent hours weeping for her mother-in-law, quietly slipped into the kitchen and retied her apron. Anna followed her. Helen, please, she said, her voice aghast. You can't be cooking right now. Sit down. Let me order pizzas, or let me cook. Helen turned, her eyes watery but her expression firm. Oh no, dear, we don't order food. And it's all taken care of. The ham is glazing, the potatoes are ready to be mashed, and the casseroles just need to be heated. It's my mother-in-law's favorite meal. It's the right way to honor her. She was cooking for, Anna counted, at least 30 people. A full, hot, multi-course meal. Defeated, Anna and several of the other women, Mark's sisters and sisters-in-law, jumped in to help. They set the impossibly long dining table, they chopped vegetables, they filled water glasses. But Helen was the conductor. She was the one tasting the gravy, directing the oven temperatures, and plating the main courses. She was grieving, yes, but her function had not changed. I asked him if this was special because of the guests, Anna would later tell Mark. But in the moment, she knew, this wasn't special. This was the standard. At 6:30, Helen quietly announced that dinner was ready. The family, a massive, murmuring crowd, found their places. Anna sat between Mark and his older sister. The food was absolutely massive. It was a Thanksgiving feast in the middle of a somber Saturday. There was enough food, Anna thought, to feed a literal army. But no one ate. They all sat, their hands in their laps. The children were silent. The adults spoke in hushed tones. Anna watched, confused, as Helen took her seat at the far end of the table. At 6:32 p.m., the front door opened and Arthur, Mark's father, walked in. He had spent the afternoon in his study, making calls and grieving privately. He walked to the head of the table, his face a mask of tired sorrow, and sat down. The entire table of 30 people watched him. He picked up his fork, cut a piece of the glazed ham, and put it in his mouth. He chewed slowly. Anna felt her own breath catch in her chest. The silence was deafening. Arthur swallowed, looked down the table at his wife, and nodded once. It's good, Helen. It was as if a starting pistol had been fired. A wave of sound erupted as chairs scraped, conversation started, and 30 forks simultaneously dove for the food. The children started talking, his siblings started passing plates, and the tension broke. Anna was frozen. No one was allowed to eat until his dad sat down and ate his first bite, and told his mom it was good. She looked at Mark. He was happily piling his plate high, chatting with his brother. This ritual, this bizarre, patriarchal ceremony was as normal to him as breathing. She looked at Helen, who was smiling, a genuine, tired smile, as she watched her family devour the feast she had spent most of the evening preparing. On the same day, she had buried her husband's mother. The meal was very, very good. But Anna barely tasted it. All she could see was this woman, this kind, warm, welcoming woman, trapped in a role so vast and so demanding that Anna felt she was suffocating just by witnessing it. Later that evening, after the family, to their credit, did a massive, efficient cleanup of the kitchen, Anna found herself alone on the back porch. She was staring at the gardens, now just dark, frosty shapes in the moonlight. She heard footsteps and Mark joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You okay?" he asked. "It's a lot, I know." "It is," she said, leaning back against him. "Your mom is, she's just the best, right?" he finished for her. "She's incredible," Anna said, because it was the only word she could find. But inside her mind was screaming, "I could never, I would never, I would die." She was a 24-year-old woman with a career plan, a 401k, and a deep, driving ambition. What she had just witnessed felt like a performance from a different century. And the man holding her, the man who split the grocery bill with her on an app, had been raised at the very center of it. The third day was a day of limbo. The funeral was over, but the grief lingered. The house, however, returned to its relentless, non-stop routine. Anna woke again to the smell of coffee and bacon. Helen was in the kitchen, packing Arthur's lunch. Anna felt a desperate need for air, for perspective. While Mark spent the morning with his father and brothers, sorting through his grandmother's belongings, Anna put on her coat and went for a walk. She explored the property. The gardens were vast, dormant for the winter, but impeccably maintained. The maintenance Arthur supposedly did was evident in the sturdy fences and the new-looking roof on the barn. But the yard, the flower beds, the sprawling vegetable patch, Mark had said this was all Helen. Anna sat on a cold stone bench overlooking a frozen pond. She thought about her own life. Her apartment, her job, her collaborative partnership with Mark. They cooked together. They ordered takeout when they were tired. They had passionate arguments about politics and art and where to go on vacation. Here in this house, there seemed to be no arguments. There was only the system. Helen was the engine and Arthur was the pilot. Everyone else was just a passenger. Anna believed his parents were happy. She had seen the way Arthur looked at Helen, the way Helen touched his arm. It was a deep, abiding affection, born of decades of shared life. This wasn't a prison, it was a choice. A choice Helen had made, and one she seemed to thrive in. But it was a choice that Anna found terrifying. She went back inside, and the house was buzzing. Lunch, Mark had explained, was whatever was in the refrigerator you wanted. This meant a free-for-all of leftovers from the army, meals Helen had cooked. Anna made herself a plate and sat at the kitchen island, watching Helen, who was now ironing, not a blouse for herself. She was ironing Arthur's work shirts. A full week's worth. "Helen, you're a superhero," said one of Mark's adult sisters, Bree, as she grabbed an apple. Helen just laughed, a light, melodic sound. "Sitting still is my enemy, you know that." "I've been meaning to ask," Anna said, trying to sound casual. "How did you manage it?" 13 kids this house. My mom was overwhelmed with 2. Helen pressed a perfect crease into a sleeve. "Oh, you just do it, dear. You don't think about it, you just do what needs to be done. Arthur always provided so I could focus on the home. It's a partnership. He builds the walls, I make it a home." "He's a good man," Anna offered. "The best," Helen agreed, her face softening. "He's never had to worry about a thing at home. His life is streamlined. He focuses on his work, I focus on the family, and well, it works." Streamlined. The word hung in the air. Anna looked at the rack of perfectly ironed shirts, the spotless kitchen, the well-fed children, the packed lunches. Helen wasn't just a wife, she was a life management service. She was the barrier between her husband and all of domestic reality. Mark walked in, grabbing Anna's hand. "Hey, you. Want to go see my old treehouse?" "Sure," Anna said, grateful for the escape. As they walked, Mark was in a nostalgic, reflective mood. "This place, it's done right. The kids get old enough, they have their own chores, they learn responsibility. Dad provides, mom manages, it's harmony." It's a serious amount of work for your mom, Anna said carefully. I know, Mark said, his voice full of that same blind admiration. She's the only woman I know who could ever do it. She's one of a kind. Anna stopped walking. The cold air bit at her cheeks. And your dad. He really doesn't do any of it. Cooking, cleaning, laundry. Nah, Mark chuckled. Dad can't even boil water. He's the first to admit it. That's Mom's domain. He does the heavy lifting, the man's work, he calls it. Anna felt a cold dread settle in her stomach, heavier than the funeral's grief. She wasn't just dating Mark, a 25-year-old software engineer. She was dating the fifth child of Helen and Arthur Peterson. She was dating a man who had been raised to believe that harmony was a 90/10 split. The rest of the day passed in a haze. Anna was polite, she was supportive, she smiled. But every time she saw Helen refill Arthur's glass, or laugh off his casual expectation that food would simply appear before him, Anna's heart sank a little deeper. She loved Mark, but for the first time she wondered if she even knew him. The fourth day was a rush of goodbyes. The house was slowly emptying as the adult siblings, with their own lives and jobs to return to, packed up and headed to the airport. Helen, in the midst of it all, was of course cooking a massive breakfast and packing travel snacks for everyone. She pulled Anna into a warm hug. It was so wonderful to finally meet you, dear, she said, holding Anna's arms. You have such a light about you. You're wonderful for our Mark. Please come back under happier circumstances. I'd love that, Helen. Thank you for everything. You have a beautiful home, Anna said, and she meant it. The warmth and love in the family were undeniable, even if the mechanics of it terrified her. The flight home was a stark contrast to the flight there. On the way to his hometown, Mark had been grieving and silent. On the way back, he was almost buoyant, filled with the strange, nostalgic energy of a full family reunion, even one sparked by tragedy. They sat in the quiet, pressurized cabin, the gray clouds of his hometown giving way to the bright, clear blue of their own city's airspace. I'm so glad you came, Mark said, taking her hand. I know that was intense. It was, Anna agreed. Your family is, they're really great, your mom is a saint. Mark sighed, leaning his head back against the seat. I know. God, I just love them, I love the way they live. That house. That's life, you know, the chaos, the food, everyone together, my mom holding it all down, that's how it's supposed to be. Anna's blood went cold. She had held her tongue for 4 days. She had been the perfect, supportive girlfriend. She had smiled, she had helped with the bacon, she had sat through the patriarchal dinner ritual. But this nostalgic fog, this admiration for a life she saw as a cage, she couldn't let it stand. She gently pulled her hand from his. Mark opened his eyes, sensing the shift. What's wrong? Mark, she said, her voice low and steady, I need to be really, really clear about something. What we just saw, your mom, it was incredible, but I am absolutely not doing that. Mark blinked, confused. Doing what? You're not my mom. I'm serious, Anna pressed, a sudden, desperate urgency rising in her. This was the moment. I am not going to be a stay-at-home mom. I have a career. I love my career. I am absolutely not going to be streamlining your life. I'm not doing your laundry. I'm not ironing your shirts. I'm not getting up at 4:30 to make your breakfast and pack your lunch. Mark looked wounded. Whoa, where is this coming from? I never asked you to do that. I know, Anna said, her voice shaking slightly. But you just said, that's how it's supposed to be. I need you to know, I expect a 50/50 lifestyle, completely. Chores, childcare if we have it, mental load. Everything, right down the middle. What I just saw, that was not a partnership. That was a one-woman support system for an entire family, and I am not that woman. The fasten seatbelt sign pinged on. They were beginning their final descent. Mark was silent for a long time, his face unreadable. He looked out the window, at the city they shared, the city where they lived their 50/50 life. He acted like he understood. He turned back to her, forcing a small, tight smile. Anna, I hear you, he said softly. I didn't mean. I don't expect you to be exactly like my mother. Of course not, you have your job, I love that about you. Anna felt a small wave of relief. Okay, good but, he interrupted, and her heart stopped. But, I mean, if we had children, I would expect you to be home more, right? I mean, my mom was always there, that's That's important. I'd want my kids to have that. Anna stared at him. The plane banked, and the sun hit his face, illuminating the man she thought she knew. He wasn't the progressive engineer she dated. He was the son of Arthur who couldn't boil water. Home more, she repeated, her voice flat. You mean you'd expect me to scale back my career, to be the default parent, to become your mom? Not become her, Anna, but, yeah. Someone has to be with the kids, and I mean my dad's business. I'm going to be working hard, I'd expect you to want to be home with them. The wheels of the plane hit the tarmac with a hard, definitive jolt. They were home, but Anna had never felt more adrift. She looked him right in the eye. Mark, if you want a stay-at-home mom or even a part-time, mommy-track wife, we should break up, right now, because I will not be that person. And you can go find someone else who feels the same way you do. Mark's face crumpled. He looked genuinely shocked, as if she had just slapped him. I can't believe you're saying this. Now. After my grandmother's funeral. This is the only time to say it, Anna shot back, gathering her purse. This is the first time I've seen what you truly believe home is. And it's not me. They walked through the terminal in a thick, vibrating silence. The argument was over, but the war had just begun. They drove back to her apartment in his car. The silence was a living thing, heavy and suffocating. The 30-minute drive felt like hours. Anna could see Mark out of the corner of her eye, his hands gripping the steering wheel, his jaw tight. He was upset. But Anna couldn't tell if he was upset because she was wrong or because she was right. When he parked in front of her building, he cut the engine, and the silence rushed in, even heavier than before. Anna, he finally said, his voice strained. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I love you. I don't love some 1950s fantasy. Aren't you? Anna replied, turning in her seat to face him. Mark, you said it yourself. You love the way they live. You want your kids to have what you had. What you had was a mother who gave up her entire identity to streamline her husband's life and raise 13 children. She chose that. She's happy, he shot back, his voice rising. And I am choosing something different. I am choosing my career. I'm choosing a 50/50 partnership. And you just told me that if we have kids, you'd expect me to be the one to be home more. Because it makes sense, he said, exasperated. My job. I'm on track for partner at my firm eventually. The money I'll be making will be more than mine, Anna finished, her voice turning to ice. So my career, the one I love, the one I'm good at. It's just the hobby career until the real work of a family starts. Is that it? My ambition is just temporary. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's exactly what you're saying, Mark. You're saying that when it comes down to it, your job is the real job, and my job is the flexible one. Your father's job is the real job, and your mother's domain is everything else. You're your father's son. Mark recoiled as if she'd struck him. That's not fair. I'm nothing like my dad. I cook with you, I clean. You follow a chore wheel, Mark. Anna cried, the dam of her composure finally breaking. That's great. But we're talking about the deep-down default settings. We're talking about what happens when life gets hard, when there's a baby, or a sick parent, or a mortgage. What I saw this weekend is your family's default setting. The woman does everything. And you admire it, you called it harmony. Mark's anger deflated, replaced by a deep, weary sadness. He saw the modern, collaborative life he and Anna shared. He genuinely loved it. But he also saw the warm, chaotic, food-filled house of his childhood. A place where his father was the undisputed king, and his mother was the devoted, sainted, and required prime minister. He had never, not once, considered that those two things were fundamentally incompatible. He had always assumed that Anna, with her ambition and her career, would soften, that the mom instinct would kick in and she would want to be more like Helen. He had assumed that the 50/50 split was a temporary arrangement for their 20s, before the real family structure began. And Anna, looking at his face, saw all of this flicker in his eyes. He didn't just love his family's way of life, he had been counting on it. You really mean that, don't you? He whispered. That we should break up. Anna's heart fractured. This was the man she loved, the man she had planned a future with. But that future had just split into two irreconcilable paths. I mean it, she said, her voice thick with tears she refused to shed. I can't be Helen, I won't. I'd be a miserable, resentful person. And you shouldn't have to be with someone who resents your idea of a family. You deserve to be with someone who wants that, who wants to be a keeper like your mom. I don't want a keeper, Anna, I want you. You want a version of me that doesn't exist, she said. She opened the car door. You want me but with your mother's values. She got out of the car, pulled her suitcase from the trunk, and walked into her building without looking back. Anna, wait, he called out. She paused, her hand on the door. I just need some time, he said, his voice small. To think this is all. It's too much right after the funeral. Anna nodded, her back still to him. Fine, Mark, take your time. She went inside. That was Monday. Tuesday was a blur. Anna went to work, her career she loves, and found herself staring blankly at a color palette for a new client. Her mind wasn't on the shades of blue. It was in a sprawling kitchen in another state, watching a woman iron a man's shirt. Her phone was silent. Mark hadn't texted. He hadn't called. She told herself it was good. He was taking time. He was processing. Maybe he was realizing that a 50/50 partnership was what he truly wanted. Maybe the shock of her ultimatum would force him to confront the programming of his childhood. Wednesday came. Anna went to the gym. She made dinner for one. She watched a stupid movie, her stomach in a tight, anxious knot. The silence from Mark's phone was no longer thoughtful. It was becoming loud. It was a weighted silence, an expectant one. She realized with a jolt that he wasn't processing. He was waiting. He was waiting for her to call. He was waiting for her to text. I'm sorry, I was emotional, I overreacted. He was waiting for her to be the one to compromise, to bend, to say that home more was something they could, perhaps, discuss. He was waiting for her to be the one who soothes the conflict, the one who values the relationship over her own identity. He was waiting for her to be a little bit more like Helen. The silence was the answer. He had taken time, and in that time, his default settings, his programming had won. He did want a SAHM. He did want the life his father had. And he was, perhaps, realizing that Anna was not the person who could give it to him. She thought of the Reddit post she had scrolled past weeks ago, where a woman had asked, "Am I the asshole?" for a similar conflict. Anna had scoffed, thinking, of course not. How could he even expect that? Now she was living it. She sat on her own couch, in her own apartment, where the chore wheel still hung on the fridge, a mocking artifact of a life that was already over. She grieved. She mourned the 2 years she had spent with Mark. She mourned the future she had painted, the one with 2 careers, shared childcare, and a messy, equal, modern life. But she did not mourn the future she was escaping. She would not be the keeper of the clock, the woman whose only purpose was to ensure the machine ran on time for everyone else. She would not wake up at 4:30 a.m. to pack a man's lunch. She would not wait for his approval to eat her own dinner. She was sad, but she was not devastated. She was, in a strange way, grateful. That 4-day trip, that somber funeral, had been a terrible, necessary gift. It had shown her the truth before if we had children became a reality. The relationship she knew was over. They were incompatible. It was Wednesday night. She had given him his time. She picked up her phone. The screen was still dark. Her thumb hovered over his name. She planned to call and talk to him tonight. Not to fight. Not to beg. Not to compromise. She was calling to formalize the end. To confirm that he was right to want the life he wanted, and she was right to want hers. She was calling to set them both free. Anna took a deep breath, the air in her lungs feeling, for the first time in days, entirely her own. She pressed the button.